So you've decided that you want either a 2-point sling or one of our convertible single-point to 2-point slings. Now the question is how you'll attach it to your gun. We make a number of different hardware options that can be used to configure your sling attachments to your preferences in a variety of attachment methods, including M-LOK and Picatinny rail. Obviously, if your rifle or shotgun is configured with attachment points, then that's your starting point. However, even then you have options to make it your own. For the basic MS-1, you have the most options for configurability since it ships without any attachments, leaving you with 2 webbing loops to connect to your firearm or to add attachments to. You can use any combination of loops, paraclips, QDs, Uncle Mike swivels, whatever, as long as the attachments you place on the sling match up with what's on the rifle. You can also use nothing if there is a place to loop the bare webbing through and attach with the tri-glide. As a matter of fact, the simplest way to connect your sling to the firearm is just by using the simple webbing loop. Many people still use this form of connection, at least in the rear of the rifle. It's very secure, but it doesn't allow for quick disconnections if that's something you're looking for. On the other hand, if you purchase the MS-1 QDM sling, you will of course need QD sockets in both the front and rear mounting positions because it comes with QD socket interfaces. Next come all of the convertible sling options. Keep in mind that if you want the best single point operation, it makes sense to have a sling attachment option near the rear of the receiver for that mode. If you want the most efficient 2-point operation, it's more ideal to use the rear attachment on the side of your stock that is away from your center line. However, you can still run a 2-point that's attached to the rear of the receiver if you prefer. The MS-3 Sling Gen 2 will require a paraclip loop or other compatible attachment in both the front and rear positions. The MS-3 Single QD Sling Gen 2 will require a paraclip loop up front and a QD socket in the rear. Both MS-4 Gen 2 slings require QD cups up front and in the rear position. Now let's go back and take a look at how to make all of these connections happen. We'll start at the back end of the rifle. Nearly all of our stocks have a webbing loop of some kind built in, which is the lightest and least expensive method of attaching your sling. Webbing is simply looped through and run through the tri-glide. If you want to use a QD swivel or QDM, many of our stocks also include a built-in QD or an option for installing one. For stocks that don't include a QD socket but have locations for socket attachment, like the SGA, the Hunters, the Zukov, and others, the Sling Mount Kit Type 1 QD mount is what you need to add that capability. If you want QD sockets on both sides of one of these stocks, you need to buy one Sling Mount Kit Type 1 and one Sling Mount Kit Type 2, which go on alternate sides and connect by a screw. The Type 1 comes with a smooth through hole in the base of the cup, a screw, and a nut, which fits in a recess in the opposing opening. Simply press in the cup, hold the nut in place, add the screw, and tighten. This works whether you want the QD on the right or left side of the stock. To add a second QD on the opposing side, you would buy a Type 1 kit and a Type 2 kit. The Type 2 kit comes with a QD socket that has a threaded hole in the bottom as opposed to the smooth through hole of the Type 1. Simply press one of the sockets into each side of the recess and then place a screw through the Type 1 cup with the smooth hole and thread it into the Type 2 cup with the threaded hole. Tighten and done. If you have a stock with a Type 1 mount already included, like the STR, and you want to add a socket to the other side, it will come with the Type 1 installed, and you'll only need the Type 2 mount to complete that setup. Our SLK AR stock is an outlier in all of this because to add QD functionality to that, you'll need to add an M-LOK QD sling mount, which you'd normally see on the front end of a firearm. On some of our products, like the SGA and Hunter stocks, there are 2 plugs located on the sides of the buttstock. These plugs hide the cutouts where you would mount a Type 1 or Type 1 and Type 2 sling attachment kit to add QD functionality to these stocks. Simply pry off the plug with a small screwdriver or other tool, then install the appropriate QD cup kit. If you'd like to attach your sling to any of our stocks with a paraclip instead of a QD, then it's as easy as plugging in the QD paraclip adapter, which turns any QD socket into a paraclip loop. If you like the idea of converting quickly from single point into 2-point functionality, you will probably want an attachment point closer to the rear of the receiver. Some of our stocks, like the UBR, the Zukov, and others, have an attachment point already built in there. On ARs, the ASAP plate can be added for paraclip attachment to give you more flexibility of movement, or the QD ASAP plate can be added for a clean QD attachment that is angled down for easier access. Moving to the front end of the rifle, if you have a free float rail of any kind, you may already have one or more QD locations available. Even if you do, sometimes those attachment positions can allow the sling to hang in a way that interferes with rifle manipulation, so you may want an alternative. For all M-LOK handguards, including our Moe, Zukov, Hunter, X22 products, and products from others, you can add an M-LOK QD sling mount. If you have a Picatinny rail out front, you can use the RSA QD rail sling attachment QD, which offsets your mounting point from the rail to keep it tucked in and out of the way of other rail-mounted accessories while providing you a QD connection for your sling. If you prefer the paraclip as a front-end attachment on your rifle, then you can use either the M-LOK paraclip sling mount or the RSA rail sling attachment. You can also insert a QD paraclip adapter into an existing QD on your handguard. For more conventional sling attachments, the M-LOK bipod mount can also be used to attach Uncle Mike-style sling swivels. And for our stocks that have dimpled areas for stud mounting, you can order convenient 2-packs of threaded sling studs and use them with our locking sling swivel 2-pack. And even if you're looking for a more traditional way to mount your sling, you still have the option to do so on an M-LOK handguard with the M-LOK GI sling swivel. So we've covered the QD socket placements on the SGA and Hunter buttstocks, but there are a few other considerations for adding a sling to your shotgun. If you want to be able to run a single-point sling, or if you prefer a sling attachment at the rear of the receiver for a 2-point sling, then you can use the SGA receiver sling mount with the SGA stock for either the Remington 870 or Mossberg shotguns. This adds a paraclip loop to the rear of the receiver so that either an MS3 or an MS1 with paraclips can be used. On the front end of a pump shotgun, we obviously don't want to place our sling on the handguard as we'll need to keep that freed up to work the action. The solution is to use the Magpul forward sling mount, available in fitments for the Remington 870, Mossberg 500 and 590, and a separate fitment for the Mossberg 590A1. These are clamp-style mounts that can add either a QD socket or paraclip loop to the front of your shotgun by clamping onto both the barrel and magazine tube. An important thing to remember is that this is a strong clamp. Don't tighten the mounting screw down excessively as it can damage the magazine tube and result in feeding issues. Ideally, place the clamp within a few inches of the end of the tube and only tighten it down until snug. Make sure that your tube is not pinched by making sure that you can fully load and unload the tube with dummy rounds prior to putting the firearm back into service. Another thing to check with the forward sling mount is slug point of impact. With any barrel clamp device, the added pressure may change the point of impact of slugs, so it's always best to make sure your zero is unchanged after installing any barrel clamp. One last product that I'd like to mention is the MSA QD Moe sling attachment. This was originally designed to give owners of Moe slot forends a really clean way to add a QD attachment, but it's actually a remarkably versatile little mount, so we've kept it in the line. I've used it to attach our slings to wooden stock lever action rifles and to make sling storage racks, but some gunsmithing is obviously required. You can use this little guy to add an anti-rotation QD socket almost anywhere that you can drill a hole. Although this covers the Magpul offerings, there are many more ways to attach slings to your rifle that we don't have time to cover, especially when you get into what can be accomplished with the loops on some non-AR rifles and paraclips, where you can use cable loops to open up your options even further. For more information about our sling mounting products, visit magpul.com and see the product descriptions for the mounts as well as for the stocks and handguards to plan out your system.